So as a psychotherapist working in the realms of transpersonal psychology for over 13 years, I became fascinated with what I call the inner terrain of consciousness, which was revealed to me by my clients' dreams that they would bring in, the imagery and imagination that would emerge in hypnotic states. And as I started working with that in a more deep fashion with their inner world and my own inner world, it became clear to me that I needed a map to traverse this terrain more clearly and to be of greater help to them. And I started looking in different areas where these maps might be found. And in the Western tradition, the richest map I found was in the work of Carl Jung. But there were things that I was discovering in my own process and with my clients that did not match up with some of the areas he had mapped out. There were consciousnesses and forces and energies within people that were more complicated and more complex than what he had pointed to. So I started looking elsewhere. And as I started looking for different maps, I found the most descriptive maps and accurate maps in the Eastern traditions, including India and Tibet and China and Japan. And then also, eventually, I started looking into the indigenous peoples, and their maps were very fascinating and very accurate as well. So part of the function that I see in my work is like a map maker for people, because in our culture, we don't have a way that people can own and accept their own inner experience across the board. So that's part of what I've been focusing on these years, is to look at and describe the inner terrain so that people can feel confident about going into that terrain. What we're going to be doing here is what I call the Ghandarva ceremony, and that was based on something that came about as I was looking at the Vedas, an ancient text out of India, which were created by sages. These were intuitive, highly intuitive seers. And they would intuit the structure of consciousness, and they described all these different inner realms of consciousness. And one of the realms they described was the Gandharvic realm. And according to the Vedas, there exists in the inner world, in the celestial realm of consciousness, a group of musicians called the Gandharvas. And their sole purpose for existence is to sing and play music to the divine. So they just hang out in this very refined vibratory state, basically entertaining the gods and goddesses. And as a musician, I found that really a neat idea. So that was very intriguing to me as a musician and as a researcher. And I started tuning in to that realm and found that there was a realm that was just like this. In the Christian tradition, that's called the Sanctus, the holy, the angelic host, always singing continually praises to the divine. So this seed appears in many different traditions and different languages. And then the idea occurred to me that it might be possible to actually, by chanting the mantras and chants of the divine with the emotion of love and gratitude, be able to elevate oneself to the Gandharvic realm and essentially become a Gandharva oneself while one is singing praises to the divine. So it's sort of funny how this came about, because in the early stages, I didn't know if anyone else other than me would be interested in this. So the first people I did the Gandharva with were my friends' pets. And I would house sit sometimes for them. And I would take in my crystal ball, and I would chant the names of the gods and goddesses, and the energies would come in, and the dogs, would be running around, the cats would be, scratching the carpet, and then they would like pause and look up, and because animals are extremely sensitive, they would feel the energy coming in, and they would just like calm down, just totally be still and not move, like they were in a deep state of meditation the entire time I was doing the Gandharva. And then when it was over, they would turn back into cats and dogs, and they'd start chasing each other and doing their thing. So I did this several times with animals, and then I was in Sedona, Arizona, doing an intensive with the Hathor energy, and I decided to take a risk and share this, because at that point I didn't know if anybody else would even be interested. And the experience was so profound for people that it became clear to me that it was a significant experience. And so I do it as often as I can. And one of the reasons I do it is that it sets off a harmonic, a dome of light that clairvoyants have seen very clearly that extends 30 to 60 miles in all directions, up and around. So it has a wonderful refining energy on the environment, and it's a way to gift the area that I've come to, and that's another reason why I do this. So the ceremony takes only about 20 minutes to go through, but in order to allow us to go into this at a deeper level, I need to create a context for it, because some people, as soon as they hear the term Gandharva and understand about the toning of love, they'll know exactly what to do. But many people are intellectually oriented, logically based, like myself. And so people like us who are pseudoscientific need a way to understand a context. So that's what I'm going to do for the next several minutes, is sort of lay out a brief context in terms of physics about what the Gandharva and the celestial realms are, so that those who are listening who may be intellectually oriented will have a easier time of entering into the experience. So I guess one of my favorite physicists is Bohm, and he coined a phrase called the explicate order and the implicate order. And the explicate order is what you and I see with our physical eyes, and the implicate order is what you and I cannot see. And what's really bizarre about our situation in this universe is that we see and sense less than 1% of what is actually there. It's been clearly shown scientifically that what you and I see with our physical eyes, hear with our physical ears, touch, and all the other senses takes up less than 1% of the known electromagnetic spectrum. So the rest of that 99+% is in the implicate order, meaning less dense, out of the range of our senses. And this is where the Gandharvas are. This is where the celestial realms are. And there's a teaching that comes from various traditions that the divine is here and the demonic is here and everything in between. And you don't have to go anywhere. It's a question of vibration. That heaven is here and hell is here, and it's a question of what you're going to vibrate as to what you and I are going to experience. And so the trick is to elevate one's vibration or consciousness, and that's what happens in the Gandharva ceremony. Is we are elevated through a particular coherent emotion that we call coherent love or unconditional love. So the celestial beings are extremely attracted to unconditional love. They gravitate towards it. And so it's like food to them, nectar. And so it's very unusual for a group of humans to get together and give gratitude or love to the divine. And when a group of humans do that, they come in from all areas, from all dimensions. And the room or the area where we do the Gandharva gets very crowded with these beings because they love to experience this. What they're used to is humans asking for things, never offering gratitude. So it's like, oh Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes-Benz? That's what they're used to. And some of you have heard this joke before. There was this little boy, I have Catholic roots, so I can tell this joke. And this boy was getting ready for Christmas. And so he prayed to Jesus, and he said, Jesus, if you tell Santa Claus to get me this toy gun for Christmas, I'll be a good boy for a whole month. And next day he was thinking about it, and he says, I can't be good for a week. How am I going to be good for a month? So that night he prays, and he says, Jesus, if you tell Santa Claus to get me that gun, I will be a good boy for an entire day. So then he's walking to school, and he's thinking about it, and he says, I can't be good for an hour. I don't know. I'm really fooling myself. And he walks by the Catholic Church, and the door's open, and he sees a statue of the Virgin Mary. And he runs in, grabs the statue, puts it in his knapsack, takes it to school, sneaks it back home, puts it by the bed at night, and he prays to Jesus. Jesus, if you ever want to see your mother again, you better tell Santa Claus. This is what the deities are used to. They know this very well. So when we get together and express gratitude, unconditional love, they are thrilled. And they come from all dimensions of consciousness, from all areas. It's pretty amazing. So in order to, the reason that they, well, I think, let's put it this way, I think that the reason that they are drawn to the emotion of love is because it has been scientifically documented to be a highly coherent energy pattern. And in psychophysiology, it's been shown that the heart has 7 layers of muscle, and each layer emits an electromagnetic field and is shaped like a donut. And these donuts are called tube toruses, and they're nested into each other in musical ratios, harmonic ratios. And when we experience love, it's been shown more and more that clearly that these rings open up and expand. So the heart literally opens and expands. It's not just a metaphor. It literally opens. The energy of the heart opens and expands. And we experience incoherent emotions such as anger, jealousy, and fear, things like that. The rings pull in. So there's dance that most of us do, opening, closing, opening, closing. The other thing that's interesting about this emotion of love is that it has a ratio of 1.618. And for the engineering people, what the ratio is based on is the pressure that is made and the duration of the pressure. And how this came about was through the work of Manfred Clynes, who's a concert pianist in Australia. And he discovered that he could make people cry by playing the piano in a certain way. And it had nothing to do with what he was playing. It had to do with the pressure he was putting onto the keys. And it made him ask, what is it about pressure that is doing this? So he developed this little device where you put your finger on a spring and you would experience emotion. And then when you experience that motion, he would ask you to press down on the spring. And then there would be this roll of paper that would be moving around, rotating, and then the pen would trace the wave onto the paper, and then they would compare these waves. And what he found was that certain emotions are universal. The waveforms of the emotion, the pressure waves of emotion, are universal in all cultures, whether you were in Africa, New York, Paris, South America, it didn't matter. And these he called acentic forms. So what is interesting about the acentic form of love is that when they analyze the ratios of the pressure to the duration, it turns out to be 1.618, which is a specific ratio called the golden mean, which was used by the ancient Greeks, was used in Egypt. It may have probably predated that as well. And the Greeks used it to build their Parthenon. The Greek sculpture and art was based on the golden mean ratio. It was rediscovered in the Renaissance, incorporated by the masters such as Leonardo da Vinci, as the ideal aesthetic form. The golden mean ratio also describes nautilus shells and how galaxies are laid out. And what's fascinating is that it is also the way the DNA spiral is laid out. DNA spiral and the nucleus of our cells are laid out in a golden mean ratio, which is the ratio of love. So it has been found, and it as of this recording, it's being replicated, but it will probably take, in the scientific method, once you discover something, you have to replicate it many times before it becomes accepted. So it's now in this process of replication. But what the data is showing clearly in psychophysiology is that when you and I experience coherent emotion, like love and gratitude, the DNA in the cells becomes more orderly. It becomes stronger, which is like very earth-shaking news in terms of the paradigms of medicine in our society at this time. So the bottom line is that the more love you and I experience, the healthier we get, the more well-being we experience. So it has some very immediate positive impacts. So the golden mean ratio, 1.618, is a high degree of order that's repeated in different levels of creation. And I think that's why these celestial beings are attracted to it. It's like they eat coherent emotion. The information is like food, like nectar to them. So what we're going to be doing is learning how to express that emotion through pressure, through the voice. Because anything that can create pressure can communicate love. And there was a study that was done in physiology quite a while ago, psychophysiology, involving rabbits and high blood pressure. And they discovered that touch can affect blood pressure. And it came about totally by accident, as often happens in the scientific method. And this particular research team was genetically engineering rabbits to be predisposed to high blood pressure. And then they would do these things to them. I don't want to know what they did. But they would then, see what the physiological results were of stress. And there was one particular group of rabbits that were not responding. No matter what they did to them, their blood pressure was not really going up and staying up like the other rabbits. And so they were trying to figure out what was happening with these bad rabbits. And it turned out that the problem was the research fellowship person. She was on scholarship, and her job was to feed the rabbits. And she would go in at night, and she was a short person, and the bottom cage, she would just throw the food in, boing, 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 boing. And then the top cage, she couldn't really reach, so she would just throw the food in, boing, boing, boing. But she said that the middle cage, which was where the bad rabbits lived, she would pick out each one and stroke it and love it. So the emotion of love that she was experiencing got communicated by touch to the rabbits and overrode the genetic predisposition to high blood pressure. So when you touch a person with love, you are doing them a great service. So anything that can create pressure can create and communicate love. And it's an organic, biological, visceral communication. It has nothing to do with the head. If you haven't met anyone, if a friend of yours you haven't seen in years comes up to you at the airport and says, "Oh, how are you doing?" Pat, 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 pat. Bullshit love. You know it's bullshit because you feel it, you know it. But if they hug you and hold you with love, you know immediately that it is the true emotion of love, and it's communicated from cell to cell by pressure. So sound is one of the means that allows us to communicate, and as I communicate that emotion. And so, as I said, the celestial beings are extremely fond of this particular emotion. To them, it's experienced as food. To us, it's experienced as a feeling, as an emotion. But to them, at an energetic level, it is food. So in order then to give them the nectar, in other words, what has happened is that we are sustained in our life through the grace of the deities in their different forms. And what we're doing is giving back to them. We're offering them their favorite dessert, a little snack. And it is done by communicating the pressure wave of love through our voices. And it has nothing to do with how good you sing. In fact, those who are good singers, we need to be very clear that it's not about performing, because sometimes people get into performance mode when we start doing the toning, and it's not about performing or singing. It's about simply going into the emotion of love and experiencing that resonance, and then letting that sound express itself through your voice. And that is food for them. And they smell ego 1,000 light years away. They do not like ego. So they'll be present, but as soon as ego comes in, they're not interested. No matter how beautiful our voices are, they're not interested, because it's not the vibration that they feed off of that they're interested in. And so to give you an experience of ego in terms of sound, these are Tibetan bowls, and they make 6 of these sets a year out of Nepal. A particular sect of lamas make them. And they believe that because it takes an entire year to make these bowls, what they will do oftentimes is to cast, say, the gold during a full moon. And then in the next astrological configuration, they'll add the silver. and they'll do, everything is done, every new addition or change is done astrologically, according to the changes in the heavens. And they believe that because it takes an entire year to complete this process, that it is tuned into the cosmic rhythms. And there's some very interesting things that have happened with these bowls that make me think that that's true, where they have changed their pitch during certain astrological configurations, and then they return back to their normal pitch afterwards. So they're very rare. There are a lot of Tibetan bowls, and it's sort of like African art. You know, if you follow African art, African art is primarily a means of expressing the mystical side, and the art pieces are revered. They're part of the religious mystical tradition of Africa. But then the tourists have discovered them, and so now they're being reproduced because it's now a market, which is good in some ways. But the original pieces are different. They have a different quality than the things that are cranked out for the tourists. Same thing with the Tibetan bowls. So this set is very rare. So I was very attached to it. So I guess about a year ago, I was teaching a class, and I happened to run into my Tibetan tantric master from the 14th century in Tibet, except in this lifetime he was a 2-year-old kid. And it was a very strange experience to be in his presence, because I saw him clearly, physically, as a 2-year-old kid, but I also saw him clearly as my tantric master in Tibet in the 14th century. And he was sitting in a squat position that he, as a kid, that he would take when he was in Tibet in the 14th century. So it was like a very strange experience. And he would pick up things like this. This is a vajra, which is a stylized thunderbolt, and tantric masters will twirl it, and I can't even do it like this, but they will twirl it so fast it blurs. So the 2-year-old kid picks this up and starts twirling it, and it starts blurring. So he is, so tuned in to this other lifetime. And so we watch him go to the different bowls and to the dorje and do exactly what tantric masters do at 2 years old, never having had previous experience of this. So then he takes the wand and starts sending chi into each of the bowls. Chi is life force, and you could sense it coming down his arms. So this is a 2-year-old kid, and he happens to take the wand into this large bowl here, which is my favorite, the one that I was most attached to. And you hear this, and he cracked it. This is a solid metal bowl. And he didn't even bang it. He just put the wand and touched it, and the chi split the metal. And I couldn't be upset at the 2-year-old kid, but on the inner, the tantric master said, I did it. I did it on purpose to teach you non-attachment and to teach you about the impermanence of things. And so it became a symbol of the ego for me, because this is the bigger bowl of the set, and it looks pretty substantial, doesn't it? It looks really cool. It's got etchings on it. It looks ancient, and there's this one over here. So this is what they sound like, to give you an example. This is this is what they sound like. And the larger one had a larger sound, of course, and this is what it sounds like now. And this is ego. Totally worthless as a musical instrument. So I carry it to remind me that ego is worthless as far as this work is concerned. But as a musical instrument, it's not worth much. So the celestial beings that we're going to be drawing in are very similar in that they simply are not interested in that. It has a tone that does not, they don't care for. So they'll leave. But as long as we express the love, the coherent emotion, they'll stay here as long as we're willing to. So what happens in the Ghandarva is that I will call in the names of the different deities from different traditions, and saints and masters of the different traditions. And then there's something in Egyptian alchemy called Ren, which roughly translates as name. And in Egyptian alchemy, it's understood that the vibration of your vibration, in other words, is held in your name. And whenever you say anyone's name, energetically, a part of them is compelled to come to whoever has said their name. So whenever you say anybody's name, energetically, they're there. So when we go through the list of the names, these beings, energetically, we're not talking about physically, but energetically, they come. And you'll feel as they start coming into the room one by one. And then after I bring in the names, and we've completed that process, which takes several minutes to bring in these different traditions, then I'll say, go to your heart and go to the feeling of love. And now express that emotion, that love. And then we'll be toning as a group. And then after that's completed for a while, then I'll ring the bell, the dorje, this sound here, 3 times to indicate that we've completed that part. And then I will sing a blessing, and then the Ghandarva is completed. So what we need to do now is to learn how to tone the emotion of love. And so what I'd like you to do right now is to tune into how you feel physically in your bodies at this moment. And just because you're in a Ghandarva, don't think that you should feel anything in particular. I mean, if you feel like a toad, then make a toad sound. Because it's not about, the Ghandarva is not about faith. You don't have to believe anything. The Ghandarva is about direct experience. So be truthful and honest with your experience, whatever it is. So tune into how you feel right now in your body. Take a deep breath and just make the sounds of what that feels like inside. Take a deeper breath and make the sounds again. Good, and one more time. Right, so we do this naturally. It's a natural thing to express how we feel through sound, through tone. So what I'd like us to do now is to get in touch with the emotion of unconditional love, either when you gave it to someone or when you received it. It's the actual feeling, not the thought about it, but go to the actual remembrance of the feeling and just rest your awareness in that feeling. And then you take a deep breath, and as you exhale, you hold the intention that that feeling emerge through your voice. And as you do that, listen to the sounds that other people are making. And we'll do this for like 30 seconds or so. So you'll take several breaths and go through several cycles. Okay? So let's all tune in to that emotion of love for a moment. Good. That's it. That's the emotion. That is called harmonic choir, what we just did. When a group of people get together and tone a certain emotion, that's called harmonic choir. And when the harmonic choir is expressing the emotion of love, there is research that indicates that people can receive emotional and physical healings just by being in the presence of harmonic choir. And it's even more effective if you participate in the harmonic choir. So that's what we're going to be doing, is becoming a harmonic choir together, singing that emotion of love, which is a high level of coherency. And what you'll find is, as you go deeper into this toning, and after it goes on for several minutes, you'll feel your consciousness shifting because you're going to be elevated. And as we get higher in our own awareness, then we come closer to that celestial realm. And we, for all practical intent and purposes, become Gandharvas ourselves. So that's sort of the background of what we're going to do. And what we'll do next is actually begin the process of bringing in the names of the deities and the saints and mystics from different traditions. My intent in this is to represent the major traditions. And if I leave out a saint or a mystic that you particularly feel is a part of your tradition, then add that mentally, because I can't possibly mention all the names of all the saints and mystics, because it would take hours and hours. I don't even know all their names. But the intention is to honor all the traditions, because the fundamental underlying truth is the same. It's just different language, different metaphors that reflect the culture that they came from. So traditionally, the Ghandarva ceremony is done with one candle, and that flame represents the universal truth in all religions. And so one of the intentions that I have for doing the Ghandarva ceremony is to heal the mistrust and the fighting between the different religions. Because if you look at the world history, it's ironic that most of the wars and killings that have occurred as a result of that have been religious in nature, in which one faction says, we have the truth, and the others are barbarians. And the truth is that that fundamental truth expresses itself through all the traditions. It's just different cultural metaphors, clothes, if you will. So in doing this Gandharva, my hope is that the vibrations of the celestial realm will help to heal this illusion. In the ancient traditions in the text, they talk about Maya. Maya is a Hindu term that means illusion and refers to the physical world. Samsara is a word from the Buddhist tradition. It means the same thing, illusion. And that illusion, Maya and Samsara are not saying that the physical world is an illusion. It's only saying that it's one piece of the puzzle. And we know from science that one piece is less than 1%. The rest of the puzzle is 99% outside of our perception. So we live in a world where our senses tell us one thing, and there's the bulk of reality as mapped out by our physics is not accessible to our senses, but it is accessible to the inner, according to the mystical traditions and the maps laid out by these explorers of consciousness from the different ancient cultures that I was talking about earlier. So as we go in through this Gandharva, I would suggest that you listen with your heart and that you pay attention to your inner reality, not so much what your senses tell you what's going on in the room, but what's going on in your feeling nature, because that's the doorway by which you can experience these beings and what the Gandharva is offering. So, having said that, let's begin. If you would now, please place your awareness in the heart center at the center of your chest, and hold your awareness in this area as I sing the chant of the archangels and the calling of the sacred names. Yogananda, Om Sri Ramana Maharshi, Om Herakan Babaji, Om Sai Baba, Om Meher Baba, Om Mother Meera, Om Mamaji, Om Sivananda, Om Nichidana, Om Muktananda, Om Guru Maya, Om Ninkaruli Baba, Om Shakti Deva, Om Sri Aurobindo, Om Shankaracharya Jyotirma, Om Maharshi Mahesh Yogi, Om Guru Nanak, Om Sakyamuni, Om Padmasambhava, Om Narupa, Om Tilopa, Om Milarepa, Om Tukulegen, Om Chinreze, Om Dalai Lama, Om Avalokiteshvara, Om Tara, Sananda, Om Sejame, Om Sanat Kumara, Om Katsumi, Om Kuan
With your awareness still in the heart center, recall the feelings of love or gratitude and express these feelings to the beings that have gathered. Now move your awareness to the top of the head, to the crown center, and hold your awareness at the crown in order to receive the blessing of the 23rd song.